Hello everyone, I'm Tony Caink. I'm the Head of Operating Model and Ways of Working at Nationwide Building Society. Nationwide Building Society won't give you a long introduction. We like to pride ourselves on not being a bank because we are a mutual building society, which does make a cultural difference. But in terms of the conversation today, if you thought of us as a high street bank, it wouldn't break the presentation in terms of understanding the content. So we won't worry too much about that. We are talking about operating model, and I don't want to drain this too much, but just basically put it up there to say we did have a why. We have a why. We have a vision that we can organise from end to end for delivery both faster and more safely. And it's the flow of value that we are talking about, the member value. Now, there's some nationwide language for you. Member in our context means the people that have an account. As soon as you open an account at Nationwide Building Society, you are a member and actually technically a part owner of the organisation. That's what a mutual means by definition. So we don't refer to customers, we say members, and that is an important part of our culture actually. On the left-hand side is some principles, values that we are going after in this transformation. They don't always say stable. Sometimes different leaders come and go and express it slightly differently, but essentially these words are working as to why are we doing what we're doing. And on the right-hand side, which has taken quite a lot of effort to agree and to be able to measure, and what are the measurable outcomes of the interventions that we make. And that would actually follow on very nicely from Adam's talk, and some of the same concepts about how we're measuring the impact that we make is in some of the things that he just presented. And of course, we're iterating. Now, what people really want to know in an operating model presentation is the what. So we'll present what we're up to, where we are right now. So there's a practical talk, not a theory talk. I'm not going to reference any of the frameworks, and neither is this a purist implementation of any of the frameworks. This is just the real state of where we are, the language that we're using at the moment, the concepts that we're using at the moment, and some of the data metrics to show where we really are up to. So we're going to break this into two parts. The first one is organise the work. Now, when people hear the word operating model, they immediately think org chart. Of course, that's about 5% of the description of your operating model. And what's the point of talking about how we organise the people if we don't even know what the work is that we're organising to achieve? So firstly, organise the work. Very satisfying to me is that this picture came out of our corporate library that's been updated recently, the official branding, and there it is. Golden thread and outcome focused are a couple of terms that I bandied around a while ago, and they've gone viral. So let's have a look at this golden thread term. Nationwide loves to invent nicknames, fun nicknames, a bit more fun than hard concepts like portfolio hierarchy or work hierarchy. So we have a golden thread instead, with a literal golden thread drawn through it. But this is a real hierarchy of work. So this is a strictly one-to-many data hierarchy of how we describe the work in our portfolio. We do have a strategy expressed as a set of cornerstones. Strategic outcomes are funded. In old school language, they might even be projects. If you really are practicing a more modern way of working, they're value-driven outcomes. But from a scale point of view, about the same. We come down to OKRs, epics, work items. The first step we did in implementing this was just to describe the size of the things. Everyone gets hung up with these words of OKRs and outcomes and how do you measure it and what's the syntax that we're going to use to describe them. Those things come with maturity. People want to describe a really powerful why in their outcomes and their OKRs. But at first, if the outcome smelt like a project, looked like a project, we didn't lose any sleep about that. We just said, let's get these things sized so that we can connect them together and make a golden thread so that we can see the transparency. A couple of important definitions. Again, language, epics. We literally mean epics as in Jira epics. We don't mean portfolio epics from SAFE. We just mean the little things that only take a few weeks worth of work. Down the bottom, we've got backlog items. So I think that should be self-explanatory. What has helped us to implement this idea is to provide a translation, because language is so important. We do need a translation if we're introducing a new set of language. Now, the experts will quickly tell us the differences qualitatively between these things, and those things come over time. But at first, at a low level of maturity, it's how do these things connect? A program, it's a thing that delivers a set of outcomes. That's not hard to explain, is it? A project, it's a thing that delivers a set of objectives. Always has been. Even PT2 says that. So we're introducing a slightly more familiar. If you get this whole hierarchy right, what have you got? You've got a work breakdown structure. Don't tell anyone, but you can. The golden thread actually becomes a work breakdown structure of the entire portfolio in your business that's transparent to everyone. A lot of qualitative differences, but nonetheless helpful. So let's have a look at where we're actually up to with this. So this is where the truth-telling part, moving past the theory. So truth-telling, these top three levels, we've got 100% aligned. We're confident the data is perfect because we attached the portfolio reporting process to it. So if you didn't provide a status report and a RAG status on your OKR, it wasn't happening. We attached money to the outcomes. If you didn't have any outcomes written down, you weren't getting any money. So we know that's true. How well are they measured? The strategic outcomes all claim to have a measure, and they all have written down a measure of success that is measurable. We have baseline data for a lot of those. That's a really good start. Much more variability at the OKR level about how good people are at measuring the value and using that to iterate. All sorts of levels of maturity. Doesn't matter for now. This next statistic is really informative from a team behaviours and habit, the discipline that was mentioned in the last talk. Bottom-up golden thread. We have in our single instance of Jira, very exciting single instance of Jira. I've said that a few times at lunchtime and people were, because we had 4 and we've managed to migrate them into a single instance of Jira for the entire organisation. So we can all see the 64,000 backlog items that we have at the moment and how many of them are connected all the way up with every link done correctly, 57% right this second. And that's without needing to mandate it or get the whips out and force it onto the organisation, but rather to explain why this is a good habit. Top-down golden thread is interesting. So we're measuring this just from OKR because we know that's 100% down to that level anyway. Then what happens below that? What that really tells us is that 35% of people have got their work not transparent at all. 35% of the time the work's still hidden in a spreadsheet or in a Gantt chart somewhere, but tells us where we are. And we've made a start on this really important disciplined connection from what's the work that's going out into your release. And we've made a start there. So that's something that is going to drive the discipline all the way through into the path to production. That's where that's at. So if that's where our work is at, what about organised? Oh, little last hint. Yes, it's Jira, but I promised myself I wasn't going to get distracted by tools. Organise the people. Now this is where operating models traditionally play and what people expect. So what we do have is a real need to define and to formalise what we mean by cross-functional teams. We'll go and tell everyone, you need a cross-functional team, it's going to be awesome. And the first thing they say is, how's that going to affect my line management empire? So we have made sure we didn't do that. We are saying cross-functional teams, they're going to sit inside your business lines and your functions, obviously. We're going to use for a while this word value streams. We've had a few goes at the language here. We've had squads for a couple of years. We've moved on to value streams. Slowly but surely we might, invent different language for it. But nonetheless, this is where we're up to. Inside those, we've got teams. We've still got a recognition that there are some things that are short-term projects or programs. And cleverly, I think cleverly, we're presenting those as not that dissimilar to value streams, really. It's just they have an end date. That's all. If you've got a long-lived program and it's got a cross-functional team in it, it's just a short-lived value stream, the other way around. Sometimes, and only rarely, we have cross-cutting programs. And what these usually are is when you see the executive get fixated on a problem statement and there's a real need to solve a problem, a remediation program, something that the organisation is going to get in proper trouble for, and they will kick off a program for it. Importantly, that tends to be a source of demand, not really a source of delivery. The delivery is still happening in these value streams down here. So capacity then overlays. If this is where we want cross-functional teams to sit, we'd have some kind of scaled agility model in here. Occasionally you might have a project or a program that feels a bit like a value stream, and occasionally you might have a little coordinating team that's doing something big and cross-cutting. All of those things are real. But how do you get the people into them without affecting the politics of the line management structure of the organisation, which would be an impasse if you said you had to change every line management relationship to make this possible? So we've left it alone. We've got functions. We already had centres of excellence. In our case, centres of excellence are big things. So all of engineering, all of change delivery, all of data engineering, big centres of excellence. We already had a bit of a matrix management model between that and projects and programs. So people were used to that model. What we've been able to just talk about is, well, how do those people actually be deployed into the value streams? So it's a kind of an interaction model, if you like, but particularly focused on the resources, on the people. We're not allowed to call them resources. So embedded team members, obviously what we all preach as being fantastic, reduce the context switching for people in the long-lived teams. However, we have some specialists that are so rare, you could not for any money go and hire enough of them to go and put one in each team. So they have to be short-lived assignments. Oops, I just clicked the button too quickly. You've got business partners. Everyone has HR business partners, finance business partners. Is that the most important thing to change straight away? Probably not. And then you do have service requests. Do you really want the payroll administrator in your cross-functional team? Or when you have a problem with your payroll, would you rather just ring someone or send a ticket off? So that's such a thing as well. Okay, let's carry on to look at how real this is by looking at some examples. What are the examples of value streams that we really have? This will bring it to life. Remember, we're just a high street bank that's not a bank. So we have retail banking, and there's a few different kinds of value streams that we have right at this minute. This is not exhaustive, just some examples. Current account origination, so getting a new current account. It's a digital journey most of the time. We want it to be a digital journey, but there is also a branch version, so that's challenging. We tend to use the words a human version and a digital version of the same journey. Deal with it. It's still a customer journey, and there we do have a team for that. Banking and savings, a bit more aligned to financial products, but it includes the platforms that they're built on, so that's a real value stream. Self-service, meaning more like the everyday digital channel. So using your digital app to self-serve for basic things like payments and so on. So that's a value stream as well, aligns to its architecture, contains all the people that it needs, but different kind. This area is probably the hardest in a retail banking environment to get right because of that intersection between channels, the actual products you sell, and the customer experience. They're all different dimensions, so non-trivial problem. Mortgages is a little more straightforward because think about how you get a mortgage. It's a really big deal to get a mortgage. It's a heck of a customer journey. It aligns exactly to the product, to the financial product and the performance of the mortgages business. So actually it's pretty easy in the sense of value stream design because it's all the same thing. Functions, this one's controversial because functions have that business partner model where business partners might be embedded, but this is talking about functions platforms almost, if you like. So you do have an internal process. If you consider colleagues to be a customer, not just your external customers, then these are colleague journeys, if you like, as oriented to teams. So you have finance systems, and they are always going to be needed. You have risk processes and systems, you have HR processes and systems, etc. They operate just the same as all the other value streams, so we call them the same. Then we have platforms. Again, we haven't gone too hardcore with trying to differentiate. We still call them value streams. And again, if the developers of the other teams are the customer, then this is still a customer-oriented value stream, isn't it? And it's great, actually, for an infrastructure team to consider other developers in the organisation as customers and behave as such. So again, we've just used the term value stream for all of them. These are the actual centres of excellence we have at the moment. The actual functions that we have. Most of the time, centres of excellence are seeking to have embedded team members on a long-term assignment. As I said, by exception, some just don't have enough to go around, and so it's more like a shared pool of people that have to come in short-term. Business partners are pretty traditional model. So how stable is this? How stable is it? Because we can tell a good story. How real is it? So here's some stats. We only recently turned on the lights on this, probably 6 or 9 months ago, that we had accurate data that we could confidently say was representing the capacity of people assigned to these value streams. Really importantly, we controlled very carefully the list of value streams, and we made sure they were exactly the same list in all of our systems. So in JIRA, in the finance systems, in the finance ledger, the P&L uses the same list of value streams. That's been an important enabler. And what we've been able to prove is that 90% of people from those COEs actually are in a single value stream. Now, that doesn't mean they're in a small, agile team, because it's quite possible. A value stream's a decent, chunky thing. It might have 50 people. It's quite possible for the leader of a value stream to still treat it as 50 people being flung on this and that project in a short-term manner. And that could be happening. That's that 35% we talked about before, probably is happening like that. For now, it doesn't matter. We've given everyone the container, we've given everyone the model that they need to implement a ways of working that is more stable. What about money? This one's a long story, probably a whole 20-minute presentation in itself, so we won't do that just now. But we have aligned money to this model. We give a top-down investment appetite. We have a CIO for each of these business lines and functions, and the actual operation of the budget is happening down at the value stream level, that people are governed, if you like, for their finances at that level. So, this one is a brief slide, just to explain how those previous two big concepts we explained overlap. So if we've got a model for how the people are organised in the teams, and we've got a model for how the work is organised, we immediately get an amazing transparency of this, and this is a very explicit model. So explicitly, our OKRs have a field for which value stream owns this thing, and of course which person it is. What this enables culturally is amazing. It enables actually delegation of accountability because there's transparency on that. If you are the CEO and you were a JIRA user, you would be able to ring, if you got worried that a certain epic was just going to break the bank, and if you could find it, you'd be able to find the person and ring them, theoretically. Or, better still, you know who the product owners of all of these levels are, and you can follow the system through. So we've got full transparency. It also enables better collaboration between the value streams. So when they have dependencies, when these OKRs have dependencies on each other across out to another value stream, we also model those explicitly, and people can see who they're supposed to be collaborating with on the other end of that dependency. That's our current state. So, is it going to go? Here we go. So what's next? If that's our current state, what do we hope to achieve? There's a lot more that one could do with a value stream model. So this is a full-blown run and change dream. So what we have done is here at the top of these three, we've got our roadmaps, our funding, our outcomes are definitely aligned by value streams. We definitely know the list of value streams that contain all of those things. We also know all our resources and our cross-functional teams, where they are sitting and how they are aligned to those value streams. We're part way through mapping the applications, so we understand which value stream in the long run takes care of which applications and platforms, which ones, it doesn't matter whether it's a platform-oriented value stream or a customer-facing one, they still have applications, data and processes to do. But that'll keep me busy for another 5 years at Nationwide. That would be quite a dream. So that's literally where we're up to, a snapshot in time. I haven't, obviously, in 20 minutes had time to explain how we got there or, how we intend to get here. Probably because I haven't written that bit yet. But if you'd like to have a conversation afterwards, please do, or grab me on LinkedIn. Quite happy to do peer organisation show and tells and have a discussion about that. It's always a super valuable conversation with others that are on the same journey. Thank you very much.